In this video, I'm going to show you how to do an oil change on this Toyota Corolla. Let's get started. To start your oil change, first locate the oil pan, which is on the passenger side underneath the engine. On the oil pan, you'll notice this 14mm drain plug, so use a socket or a wrench, break it free, and let's remove it all the way. As I'm removing it, I'm holding pressure on it so that as it gets to the last thread, oil doesn't come shooting out at me. And I can feel that it's completely unthreaded now, so I'm just going to quickly pull it away. And there you have it. We'll just let this drain completely in our collection bucket. As the oil is draining, I'm going to inspect my drain plug, make sure the threads are good, the head of the bolt, and of course the washer, the gasket that seals it all up. You can reuse these a few times, but if yours is worn out, broken, or inexistent, make sure you put one on or replace it. I'm going to reuse mine because it's still in good condition, but if yours was here, looks like it's in good condition but is leaking, definitely replace it as long as the threads are good and it's not leaking because of bad threads. At this point, this is still draining, but I'm going to wait until it's down to a drip, and we're going to move on to removing the oil filter now. On the front of the oil pan, right here, you'll see the oil filter. I still have my collection bucket here because not only will this leak, but I'm still actively draining the oil. So in the meantime, let's get this oil filter off. Sometimes you can take them off by hand. This one's pretty tight on here, definitely over tightened, so let's get an oil filter wrench. There are several types of oil filter wrenches. Some have a strap, that strap on here, and then you have a lever that you pull on. Others look like this, it's a cup. And this one has two sizes, 65 and 68mm. We actually need the smaller size that's in there, 65mm, and it slides on, has these cutouts. The oil filter has them too. And you can either use a socket on here, two different size sockets, I guess, or a 3/8 extension right in the middle with a ratchet. Once you get the oil filter seated on the oil filter itself, take that ratchet and break the filter free. And I like to remove my oil filter wrench if possible. If not, I'm gonna have to do it after, but sometimes it gets covered in oil if you don't remove it right away. Yep. Take this out and just let it drain. Grab a rag and clean up the mounting surface of the oil filter right here where the gasket sits, and make sure that the old gasket came off. Sometimes they'll stick onto the engine and the new one already has a gasket on it, and then it'll double gasket, which will cause a major leak because two gaskets together will not hold the pressure. So make sure that everything is ready to go here. Oil will keep dripping down here, that's fine. We'll just wipe it off again right before we put the new filter on. Speaking of new oil filter, here's the new one. I like to prime it, especially since in this case it sits upright like this, not on the side or upside down. And priming it basically just means I'm gonna fill it with oil, and that will prevent a dry startup. So take your 5W30, that's what this engine requires, and pour a little bit in the middle until it gets full. Be careful not to spill too much. As you can see, it's bubbling. That's the air coming out and the oil getting soaked into the filter material. Then I'll let this sit for a minute, and then I'll fill it again to make sure that it's as full as I can get it without overdoing it, of course. With a clean glove, I'm going to take a little bit of oil and lubricate this O-ring. This will prevent it from getting stuck on there next time, and it will help it come off easier. I'm ready to install the new filter on the engine, so I'm going to wipe this off one last time to make sure it's clean, free of any debris or oil dripping, and then slide the new filter on here, thread it on. It should thread on smoothly like this. If it's difficult, it's probably cross-threading. At this point, it's bottomed out, and once it bottoms out, you don't want to go more than a whole turn. It even says it on the filter itself, 3/4 to 1 full turn. That's half. And that's 3/4 right there. You should definitely not use the oil filter wrench to tighten it. By hand is how you want to do it. It's down to a very slow drip, so I'm going to call this done. Wipe off the area and put in the drain plug. Bottom it out by hand, make sure it threads on smoothly, and now let's torque it to 27 foot-pounds. If you don't have the ability to torque it, just give it another half a turn with your wrench or ratchet, and that should be good. Basically, just make sure it's snug, but don't over tighten it because the oil pan will strip out and then you've got bigger problems. And that's it right there. About half a turn is all it took. If you have oil that got anywhere at this point, wipe it off because you don't want to confuse it for a potential leak in the future. From the top with the hood open, you need to locate two important things here. One is going to be your oil dipstick. It's the yellow one that sticks out through the runners of the intake. and the other one is going to be your oil filler cap, which is right here through the valve cover. I'm going to take the oil filler cap off, unthread it, and it says right on it what type of oil you need. Your viscosity is 5W30. This engine takes 4.5 quarts of 5W30. Most oil bottles will have a scale on the side of them, so that's how you'll measure your half a quart. If you don't have a funnel, just go slow so you don't spill it all over the place. And a little tip, no matter what size bottle you have, whether it's the 5 quart or the single quart, if you tip it sideways, it's going to pour out a lot smoother. I'm exactly at the half quart mark, so I know I'm good. If you accidentally went a little bit over, that's okay. If you went a little bit under, just add some. But if you went a lot over, you're going to want to drain some. So just be careful how much you put in. I'm going to put the oil filler cap back, tighten it up. And now, even though I know I put the right amount in, I like to check it. Keep in mind the vehicle has not run yet, so it will read a little bit high because it hasn't circulated yet. So pull the dipstick out, wipe it off as you pull it out, because this won't give you a clean reading right off the bat. You have to clean it off. We'll have to dip it back into the tube all the way down, pull it back up, and this is where we get our reading. You'll see these two dots. The level has to be right in between them, but preferably right at the dot that is higher up on the stick. That's where you have your 4.5 quarts of oil. It's hard to see because the oil is so clean, but if you, there we go, right there you can see the light shining, and I'm right at the full mark. So I know I'm good to go. Put this back in, and now you can set your oil change reminder, whether it's a sticker on the windshield or however else you do it. Now that you've completed your oil change, let's reset the oil change reminder / maintenance light, whatever you want to call it. Put the key in the ignition, turn the ignition to the on position, but don't start the engine. And you want to make sure that you're on the odometer, not on trip A or trip B. Stay on the odometer. Then you're going to want to turn the ignition off. Hold down this button that changes trips and turn the ignition back on as you hold it. Okay, you'll notice the dots blinked until they went away, and then it displayed a bunch of zeros. That means the maintenance reminder / oil change light has been reset.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.